Welcome, friends. Another episode of the Preferred Community from the... excuse me. I always said that wrong, Stacy. Another episode of the Preferred Experience coming to you from the Preferred Community, the city of Prattville. I'm Will Barrett, joined as always by the Millzer. And Millzer, for the first time in a week, the sun shined today.
Of course it did. You know why? Because I had that procedure on my eye and I had to be dilated.
Yes. Yes, and I'm not sure if our guest today understands when you say eye procedure what you're actually talking about. Well, we're gonna introduce the guest in just a minute, but hear this hear this eye procedure. This is the most horrible thing I can imagine.
Well, I had to have, of course, they put the numbing drops in, and then I get an injection into my eyeball to numb it for the medicine injection. So I get 2 injections in my eye, both eyes. I did the other eye last Monday and got this one today. So
on account of
every month,
on account of the sugars,
the sugars got me.
The sugars got him. Well, you look better. You look like you're no worse for the wear today. So.
Yeah. Well, we've determined that doing one at a time is a heck of a lot better than doing both of them and being shut down for 2 days, basically. Yeah. So I've been I've been running one eye this afternoon once I got the procedure done. So
and no capillaries clipped, no veins clipped this time.
That's like I said, he's only my doctor, Dr. Palmer, who's just unbelievable eye doctor. I mean, just unbelievable. I'm all joking aside, I owe having my vision to him. Mm-hmm. And his previous partner, who was a good doctor himself, but I'll do a quick explanation how it goes. The way my current doctor, Dr. Palmer, who's the best that does it, he lays you down on the table, make sure you're stable, so there's not a whole lot of movement. Well, my old doctor, the one I originally had, Dr. Sharper, was kind of this I ain't got time kind of doctor. So he basically, when I was sitting up in a chair, he'd just look at me and just go stab me right in the eye without any kind of stabilization or being laying down or anything. I'm just basically sitting there. He goes, hold still, poke.
Wow.
And he had this nasty habit of clipping blood vessels when he does that. And
it's ugly
and it's not as bad as it sounds. It's commonplace when you have injections in your eye. It's if you're not like real careful like Dr. Palmer is, if you see somebody's eye just looks completely blood red. That's what's happened. They ruptured the blood. Somebody sneeze hard, their eye. I've heard of people rupturing blood vessels in their eyes by just sneezing hard. And so he did. Dr. Sharper, because Will has seen some pictures and personally witnessed some very gruesome looking.
It's very zombie-like.
Yeah, very zombie-like.
Very Dawn of the Dead kind of stuff.
Yeah, and but like I said, once Dr. Palmer's taken over, knock on wood, we've only had one incident where he partially clipped one, so it was I had a half bloodshot eye.
It's just absolutely. I mean, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. That's one of my best friends.
I wouldn't. It's. Like I said, if it wasn't totally, completely, and 1,000% necessary to see, I wouldn't be doing it. So,
well, we have a fantastic guest today. Now we've had several really good guests on the show. This might be one of the best we've had. We have a guest today is a Prattville icon, and if I could just give you a brief history of her, that's halfway giving it away. She was elected to city council in 2012. So you probably already know who this is. She and her husband grew up in Prattville. They met as childhood neighbors. Can you believe that? I mean, you mostly hear like high school sweethearts, then it's a rare thing, much less childhood neighbors. Met as babies and ended up being married and started a family right here in Prattville. It's Counselor Lora Boone. welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much for having me today.
I think that this is long overdue. We've been meaning to have Counselor Boone, now Council President Lora Lee Boone, on the show. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you are the first female council president in the history of our city.
You know, I'd have to go back and look that up. It seems like we might have had one more. I can't remember if we had a former female counselor who might have been president at one time, but I don't really know all of the history. So I'll take it if I'm first. If not, I will gladly follow in her footsteps.
Being on the city council comes with its share of trials and headaches and tasks. And I imagine as a female on the council, it comes with an even additional share of things you have to deal with that you would just rather not, or things, but also things that maybe you're a little more adept at dealing with that most people aren't. What would you say are some of the things that you've been on the council now for 10 years? And time flies, right? 10 years is a long time.
It does seem like a long time, but in other ways, it seems like just a blink of an eye. I have a picture of my children in their T-shirts, Boone for Council, when I ran the first time. And I keep it in my bathroom just kind of as a reminder of this is why I do this. This is why I've been doing it. And also just as a reminder of the time past, because there they are, teensy tiny in their little shorts and tennis shoes that I had picked out, and their matching shirts. And it just reminds me of how long it's been. So, yeah, it's been a while, but at the same time, it goes by very quickly. It seems like every time I blink, it's another Tuesday night.
And those Tuesday nights do come fast and furious.
They do. And there always seems to be something else to have on an interim Tuesday, even though we may meet. And that's the biggest misconception I think that the public has, is that all we do as a council is meet 2 Tuesdays per month, say yay or nay a few times, and we're out of there. And that is their perception of what we do, which is a great misperception of the amount of time that it takes to be a counselor.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's a very, very, very small paycheck for what you guys actually do. I imagine if you put it down to an hourly rate, you're making less than $1 an hour.
Absolutely. Pennies on the dollar, a pittance. So I do appreciate every bit of it, but definitely if you look at the hourly scale, that's not the reason to do it. You just have to have a public heart for service.
And you do, obviously, not only as a city councilor, but also a Spanish teacher, which people might not know about. That you actually teach Spanish, and the kids in your class that I've talked to actually is like, we like Miss Boone's Spanish class. It's fun. I've never known somebody to make Spanish fun.
Spanish has to be fun. Why else would you take it? I know it's required for some schools and for some colleges, but really, you have your choice. It's almost like airlines. There used to be one of those airlines that had the statement, it's their motto, we know you have choices when you choose to fly. Please, thank you for remembering blank and blank airlines. And I would say that's the same thing for language. You have choices. Nowadays, you can take languages online. Mm-hmm. Any number. If you wanted to learn, Malaysian or something, you can get online and look that up, and it's available to you. So for students to have a choice, of course, I think Spanish is the obvious choice because of the large number of Hispanics in the United States and how much that population is growing and how influential the language is. I think that it's the obvious choice, but at the same time, they do have a choice to do other things, and I don't malign any student who wishes to do German or Russian or Chinese or something. There are reasons for each of those, but I think that Spanish needs to be fun. It needs to be appealing. You lose kids very quickly if you are rote and if you are boring. So I think in the classroom, all subjects need to be made a little bit more interesting and a little bit more kid-friendly.
Now, you have been teaching Spanish for many years now. Like we said, on the council for 10, you have two boys that are now college level and beyond. But when you were coming through as a city councilor, they were coming through the teenage years, and some and a little bit before teenage and through teenage years. So you had a family balance to really strike here. And a lot of people have a hard time striking that balance. So talk a little bit about how you balance family and civic duties and work at the same time. It's a challenge.
It is. I think the biggest thing is to get them involved. Let them see what mom does for a living. Let them be a part of that. Let them learn about government, about economics, about politics, about geography. All of those are great lessons that young people can learn by being involved. So we took them along. And when I say we, my husband was a great partner in this. He has supported my desire to do this from the beginning and has made it, he's been such a good partner in when they were little, babysitting, taking them. We had every Tuesday night what was called GNO, Guys Night Out. Since I have sons, he made special time with them, and they would go to dinner. But also, they went to a lot of meetings, and they had to learn to be quiet, and they have to learn to be quiet about things that they hear at home when we're talking about issues that are not ready to be released to the public yet, or about an individual person and what's going on with them. They've had to learn how to keep things quiet and to themselves, and they've learned a lot about economics. They've learned a lot about math. They've learned how the process works. They've learned a lot about voting. Since they were in their baby carriers, we have taken them to vote every time we go vote and let them get the little I voted sticker, let them be a part of the process. And as a result, they are now active voters in the community. They know who's on the ballot. They know how to get on the computer and look up who the candidates are. They know about split parties. They know more than your average Joe about politics because it has been that. So I think the balance is have your kids involved, whether you're in politics or whether you're in anything involving your kids in your career. It helps them either decide, hey, I want to follow in mom or dad's footsteps, or, oh, no, I definitely do not want to do what mom or dad does. Helps them find their gifts, helps them see what different careers are made of. So I think that is the balance, is inclusion and helping them to understand what it's all about.
Now, I've known Matthew and Andrew since they were little bitties, since their preteen years, through YMCA Leaders Club and just being in the community. And you have raised your kids to be very respectful, to be very responsible, to be very well-adjusted kids, but they're very different kids. How's that? I mean, mine are the same way. I have Caleb and Libby, and Libby's 6, Caleb's 14, and they're already very, very different from each other. How does this happen?
Oh, it's always the nature-nurture argument. I mean, we've heard that forever and ever. I think we see a balance of both. Having 2 children who are adopted, we definitely look and say, where do they come from? I mean, there are days when we're like, I'm not like that. You're not like that. Where did that come from? And we live in a household where 3 of us are type A and driven and scheduled, and we're there early, and everything is go, go, go. And then we have one that's type Z, if that exists. I mean, he is a procrastinator, and he is so laid back, it doesn't matter if the world is crumbling around him. He's not leaving the house if it's on fire until the very last minute he has to leave that house. So I think that you've got a lot of genetics play into it, raising plays into it. But I mean, no matter what you do, I actually have twins in my classroom. And one day this week, one of them came in late, and she had a tropical smoothie in her hand, and her twin, who was sitting beside her, said, "That smells awful. I can't stand the flavor you got." And I said, wait a minute, y'all are identical twins. Tell me again how this works. You don't like the same foods? And they both stuck out their tongue and made noises. So, I mean, even when you have genetically identical children who come out of the same 2 people, you just never know what you're going to get. So I can't explain mine. I can't explain yours. It happens.
Well, I was hoping you could explain mine.
No, science is definitely not my forte. Language girl.
But you did hit on something in that, and when you're talking about Matthew and Andrew, and you mentioned that you and John adopted those 2, and that is an amazing process in itself. And talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind. Just the decision to adopt when you did that, and how that came to be.
We are the most vocal people about adoption you will find in the city of Prattville. So you will hear us spouting it, dropping it just by accident, because we talk openly about adoption. And that's where adoption needs to move in the United States. It needs to move to the open front so that everybody does not think it is the Lifetime movie of the week where the child burns down the house with the adoptive parents in it. That's not the experience at all. Adoption is a great answer to pro-life and what we've got going on in the United States. And it is a great answer to families who want children. It is a great answer to children who need parents. It is just good all the way around. And of course, there are so many types of adoption and so much that can happen. For us, we really wanted a newborn. And so we chose to do domestic adoption, which would mean we got our child from here in the United States, as opposed to going overseas to pick up an orphan who would have had a little more age and some different restrictions. And there are pros and cons to both. In the United States, You do have the opportunity that a birth mother could change her mind. That happens sometimes. It's rare because the adoption agencies do such a fine job of counseling young women and their partners. And so quite often it does not happen, not as often as you would think. But there is that risk. And so if you decide to adopt domestically, then that's a possibility. But we were willing to take that risk, especially we were guided by the Lord. There's no doubt at all that our faith drove this decision and that He had a plan for us in a time period that all of that was going to happen. But we did do 2 different domestic adoptions, and Matthew was born in California, and we went out there, stayed a couple of weeks. There's that little trial period while you're waiting on paperwork to go through,
Sure.
Which is really interesting to live in a hotel with a newborn. You just never know what's going to happen. The first night we picked him up from the hospital, and we went out for Mexican food somewhere that somebody had recommended at the hotel. We walk in with the little baby carrier, and there's our baby who's 48 hours old, and I'm carrying the carrier, and women started coming up to me going, I don't think you should really be eating this spicy food tonight, honey. Probably not a good idea. And this old man came up to me and said, are you an aerobics instructor? You look great. Of course, I had not been through the pregnancy and gained the weight. So, it creates some little things there, and there's always the opportunity to tell people about adoption. And we told our children from the time they were born, we read them books, and we would tell them things like, when we got you, when we picked you up, while we were waiting for you. Mm-hmm. So they always had those expressions, and there was no great big sit them down at 16, or there was no overhearing some lady at church who mentioned they're adopted. None of that happens if you're just very open along the way. And our children have responded beautifully to that. One of our sons actually has birth siblings that are living in Birmingham. They were adopted by another couple in Birmingham, and so we have raised them like cousins, and he gets to see his siblings, and now that they're young adults, they carry on their own relationship. They have cell phones, and they have cars, and they can meet up when they want to. So it really does bring lots of interesting aspects to your life that you would not have necessarily had with a birth child. But at the same time, families are so diverse nowadays. In general, being in the school, everybody lives with step siblings and half siblings, and families are so blended and so diverse that my children never felt like they were any different than anybody else's. I mean, when they would say my sister who lives in Birmingham, that was no shock to anybody else.
Yeah, and I adoption is the most amazing analogy of the love that God has for His children. That know that we were chosen. We were chosen by God, just like adopted parents choose their children. And it's almost like an adopted child should have a higher confidence level about themselves, because you don't choose your biological kids; you get what you get. But with adopted kids, it's a choice you make. It's a choice you make, and it's such a beautiful thing. And I agree with you 100%. That's something that she brought out into the forefront, and it is an amazing pro-life answer, and people don't want to see it that way. But people these days, it seems like people just want to see what they want to see, even though you can put so much truth and so much facts right in front of them. There are certain people that aren't going to be swayed because they want to believe what they want to believe, and that becomes a real problem, I think, especially. We see it on the world political stage and the national political stage, but local politics plays into that too. People just believe what they want to believe, and they don't want to hear the answers. They just want to post it. Whatever they feel is what their truth is, and to let it go. And you have to kind of, as a city councilor, I'm sure you get a lot of that, and you have to just kind of have some sort of filter where you could just put that away and not listen to certain things. I mean, is that something you've had to learn over time?
It is. When you're dealing with the public in any aspect, I think that you can kind of compare being a politician to working in retail, because I see people who are working in a sales job or people who are working at a restaurant, and they deal with the same thing. People who are angry in the public, and they are right no matter what, and they don't want to listen to anyone else. And so eventually you just get used to it. If you can't get used to it, you're not in the right career. And then often having someone to bounce it off of, and don't go public. I think that is the really big thing, is for me and others who are in politics not to get out there and just fire back, because it doesn't do any good. It doesn't help anybody. You have not persuaded, Facebook is not a place where you're going to win any battles at all.
No.
So I think that just knowing that sometimes there are going to be people who are 180 degrees from you, and just accept it like it is, but then have someone to bounce it off of. My husband listens to Tuesday night. He's like, I come in and he's like, okay, I'm ready. So I pretty much tell him, don't come to the meeting. You don't even want to be in the meeting, because he gets madder than I am, because, of course, he's my husband and he wants to be protective.
Sure.
And I'm like, you can't do that. You've just got to let it ride. It's not personal. And most of the time it really isn't personal. It's just differing opinions.
Right. And so your decision to get in city council is almost like, well, it's the last thing standing. I'm looking at your bio here, and you have paid your civic rent 100-fold of what is required of a normal citizen. Looking at your stuff here, if I could just read off some of this a little bit: a member of the Prattville Service League, a sustaining member of the Prattville Service League, a 6-year president of the Association of Parents and Teachers, Prattville Tourism Committee, a Tauga People Against a Littered State, Prattville Fireworks Committee, Prattville Ladies Golf Association, the United Way, Prattville Tauga Humane Shelter, Prattville Library Summer Reading Program, the Family Support Center, and a volunteer translator for Tauga County Schools. So city council was just the next thing. It was all there was left.
I don't know. I think that, God's timing is it's just a way. I actually think that my interest in city council and in politics in general began when I was in the 4th grade. My parents took me on a trip to Jamaica. It was my first time to leave the country. And my dad always took time to talk to me about politics and economics. And I was the son he never had as an only child. And he invested in me. He never believed that, oh, she's a girl, she needs to do girly things and she's not capable. He always treated me like a peer. And so not in an inappropriate way, but just investing in my learning. And so, while he tutored me at home if I had trouble with math, he definitely sat down beside me. But this was more of a learning by doing. And so I remember my mother was very ill while we were on the trip. And so she stayed in bed one day, and Daddy and I took a trip, and we got into a little van, and we went across the country to go see some waterfalls. And we stopped several places along the way. And one place where we stopped, there was a port town. And there in the port town, I'm giving away my age here, there was a Russian ship. And it had the Russian flag flowing. And it was the old sickle and hammer red Russian flag with the yellow.
The commie flag.
It was the communist flag that drew fear. It was still the Cold War.
Yeah.
And we were still very much afraid. We had all of those movies like Red Dawn and those things that had come out in the 80s that little children were afraid of Russia. And my dad began to tell me why that ship was in port, why there's a Russian ship in Jamaica's port, and about trade that happened in the Caribbean, and how while we didn't trade at the time with communist countries, that Caribbean nations did. And he talked to me about Cuba and its history. And then he told me, why they were there. They were there to gather the product bauxite, which is what you make aluminum from. That's where I got my Coke can. So he was just teaching me and instructing me about political relations, about allies, and about adversaries, and about economics, and about natural resources. So I got so much just right there was just kind of the beginning, and all the way through, whether it was the division of Yugoslavia later on in the 90s or whatever it was, he always talked to me about politics and about what was going on. And my parents encouraged me to serve as a page in the legislature. So when I was in the 5th or 6th grade, they insisted that I do the whole thing myself. So I picked up the phone and called our representative at the time, told him my name, where I lived, who my parents were, and that I was interested in paging for him. And it all worked out, and I went in and spent some days in the legislature, and boy, what an eye-opener. It was key time of Alvin Holmes. He was a big guy in the legislature at the time, and so I learned all about filibustering, and I learned about how little got done, and I learned about how deals were made. And just from that time on, I have always been a no-nonsense, get-stuff-done kind of girl, and I was flustered and floored and just amazed at how they didn't get anything done. And I was like, if I can just get up there, I can fix it all. There I was, 10-year-old girl, get out of my way. And so I think since then, I have had that longing for get out of my way. I can really help with the organizational administrative portion of being a leader. And so I think city council was just a natural fit for the gifts that God's given me, which are the organizational, no nonsense, let's get some things done, feeling responsible to the party who put me in there.
Oh, and I totally agree with that sentiment. You are a get things done person, and as my representative of District 7, I could say after being in several council meetings, you are a get stuff done person, and I can respect that. I respect that very much. We don't beat around the bush. We don't have to. Let's go at it. Let's get things done, and that approach I think is what's helped propel Prattville in a lot of ways. Prattville is one of the largest growing cities in the state, for the fastest growing cities in the state for the last 20 years. And a lot of that's due in part to the decisions made by this council. For some people want to say, well, those decisions are wrecking our small little precious town, all in the name of progress, not progressiveness, but progress. But what do you say to people like that? They go, well, we're missing our small little town. It's not what it was anymore. What do you say to that?
I say move. No, I never do. I think that. I really do. But and there's a place for that. I mean, my grandmother can tell me stories about when downtown was not paved and when City Hall was 2 stories, et cetera, et cetera. I understand the sentiment. I remember when I was a child and there were cotton fields everywhere, and Walmart was not sitting where it was. That was a beautiful land, an area where, I knew the person who lived at the top of the hill. And those people who've been around here for a long time do have those memories. But we're doing well, and if we want to progress and we want to bring things here to make this the kind of place where our children stay, and that's truly one of the reasons I claimed when I got in, and something I have stuck to, I would like for this to be the kind of place that is where my children want to come back, not just come back to see me, but that there are jobs that are ready for that next generation and a reason for them to rear their children here. So keeping our education system, keeping the jobs, we're just going to have to keep up unless we want to shut down and become a ghost town. To me, that's the other option is we can be a has-been or we can be a developing, evolving place. And we've got to keep up our infrastructure. I know that that's a real issue. We are having major growth, and growth is good until you outgrow what you have. So we are very cognizant of the issues, and you being an engineer certainly are aware of the issues that we have with infrastructure. Sure. And some of the suggestions that we get sometimes are ridiculous, but we are working with the head knowledge that we do have to have enough water to keep the tanks flushing, and we do have to have the roads to keep people moving through town, and we do have to have the red lights on a cycle so that it doesn't back up. So those are things that we are working towards, and I just do believe that for Prattville to continue to thrive instead of to become a ghost town, we're going to have to accept that it's no longer a 2-stop town with cotton fields.
Absolutely. And the old adage, you either get busy growing or you get busy dying. You're doing one or the other, and you put people in places in the city and department heads that are cognizant of the infrastructure and are keeping pace with the growth. And so, hats off to finding that balance from the council and the department heads of the city that are able to strike that balance of growth that you can't see and growth that you do see. The infrastructure is not sexy.
No, putting money underground is one of the hardest things we have to swallow and do. It's tough, but people appreciate it once they stop flooding, and once those things happen, the road quit having potholes. Then they start to appreciate that. That is, with our 1/4 division right now that we have of the penny, that is infrastructure is 1/4 of where we're putting that money, and it is non-controversial because nobody really wants to debate the size of a pipe, but
right.
It has to be done. And so it is truly something that doesn't necessarily have good funding streams. And so, people don't want to talk about gas tax, and they don't want to talk about tax is such an ugly word. And of course, I'm traditional conservative and I don't want to tax people. But we do have to have some type of revenue stream, or either things will dry up and they won't be usable.
Well, that's exactly right. And all you have to do is go 35 miles to the west and see what happens when a revenue stream dries up in what was once a major city, now washing away.
Yes.
One of the fastest declining cities is Selma, and one of the more rapidly inclining cities is Prattville. So you can see two different types of leadership there.
Yes.
So, and that's not critical one way or the other. It's just the way it is right now.
Yes.
And so, but
and also you got built-in advantages here in Prattville with interstate access. People have no idea how big a impact that makes on the growth of a town is interstate access. Because like your example, Selma, there's not you got a semi-major highway that goes through there, and that's it. And there's just no incentive to grow, I guess is the best way to put it, when there's no major traffic flow going through there.
And Prattville has made a name for itself with interstate traffic. People who regularly traverse North-South 65, they know that this is a safe place to get off. And I think that that's a huge part of our community that we can promote is the safety that is here. And our first responders are second to none. And so having the safety of getting off here, having the safety of shopping here, having the safety of stopping at certain restaurants to grab your meal if you're coming between Huntsville and the beach or so on, this has just become a safe stopping place, also a safe place to stay if you need to overnight, if it's too far, wherever you're traveling. Our hotels that are close to the interstate have definitely taken off, and we have so much staying power there between those coming in for tournaments or stopping in for whatever the reason.
Sure.
We've got great occupancy rates here.
And your stance on building industry and building business here in Prattville, I feel like it has to come. It sounds like it's in your blood. Like this is like how you've been just raised to be. And I gotta feel like it started with your parents' family-owned business. That was your first job as a teenager, if I'm not mistaken.
It was. It was what didn't count as a real job, but it's what I did. My parents actually found that it was easier with sports and with activities and church and our schedule to not have me actually working for someone else. So they just put me to work in their office right away, and I became kind of the gopher and copy girl, anything they needed done. I made lots of phone calls, lots of trips to the courthouse. My dad was a real estate appraiser, and so he had his office in the house my entire life. So I did grow up knowing exactly what hard work was, because if my daddy had a deadline, I could wake up during the middle of the night and he might be in there doing the paperwork during the middle of the night, because he didn't have to get in the car and go to an office. He could work whatever hours he chose, which gave us flexibility for family vacations and other things. But yes, I definitely saw what hard work was and what building from the bottom up was. And it was very much old-fashioned capitalism. My dad got an order in, and if he turned it around quickly and pleased the business, he got another order in. And it was, you got paid for what you did. And so it was very traditional reward. And we have seen the downfall of that with my husband continuing to be an appraiser and in that business. We've seen government regulations that are coming in that are taking away initiative in America right now by saying things like, oh, you have to have a certain list of appraisers and you need to go in order 1 through 10. And when you've gotten to number 10, you can go back to number 1, but you can't just pick whoever is the best. And that's what America is built on. America is built on doing the best work, being the best at your job, and being rewarded for that. And I'm seeing that being taken away at the federal level and it trickling down. And so that's something I don't want to see continue, and that's what I stand against, even though I am in lower level politics. I very much believe in hard work and sweat equity and reward for doing the best job, as opposed to awarding those who are just in the business.
Exactly. We used to incentivize excellence in this country. If you do a great job, you get another job and another and another. And like you said, now you're just one in the list, and
Right.
that's not fair.
Right.
Well, it's called fairness, but it's not fair at all.
No, it's not. It's not. And that's not what we teach our children. It's not what we teach our children through whatever their activity or their sport. It's do the best, be the best, and then, you will get the job. And nowadays, it's like we can't find anybody to work for us. Nobody even wants to work.
Right. Because so many have been incentivized to not work. One of the biggest things that happened during COVID, well, a lot of things happened during COVID that were eye-opening, but one of them was we had to send people home because we didn't know what was going to happen next. So we started paying people to stay at home. The government did. And rightly so. When you involuntarily shut someone's business down, Fifth Amendment, you have to make a recompense for that. You have to pay for that. You have to make up for what they would have made. Of course, understood. The whole PPP loan program makes sense to me. What didn't make sense was that when that all stopped, and all of a sudden this American working class goes, well, I just don't want to go back to work, and I'll just find a way to make do with what I'm being given. And if it's less, it's just less. I can't imagine how we got. I can see how we got to this place, but I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that we would be at a place where so many of our able-bodied Americans choose not to work.
Right.
It's such a problem, and I don't think it's as big a problem in Prattville as it is in other places, but it's still a problem here. Just being able to find restaurants, being able to find wait staff and stay open back to pre-2019 hours just to just to stay open on weekends or Fridays or Saturdays. I mean, this is a problem. How do we get out of it?
I don't know. I think we're going to just have to weather through it for now, and maybe eventually the consequences are going to push people back because the consequences have to be heavy. I mean, we cannot continue at this level.
Yeah. I mean, I look around, I'm going, how are these people even paying any bills that they're choosing to not work? And what can the government be giving you that makes up for the wages that you were making before? It can't be what you were making before. I don't understand. Maybe there's a secret that we don't know about.
I'm certainly missing out, but even if that were the case, there's something in me, and I'm sure that it's faith based. It's driven to work. There's a lot of good that comes from work. The relationships at work. Yes. The physical. The gift that I've been given of using whatever my mental acumen is towards problem solving at my jobs. All of these are God-given gifts. He ordained man to work for His glory, for others. I know that I'm sovereignly placed where I am so that I can be of influence, and so that others where I am can also be of influence to me. I mean, I know that I am in these places so that I can be ministered to as well. And so, I mean, I've just got to say, people just need to be at work.
Just go to work. Bottom line. But something else that I noticed during COVID-19, during the pandemic, was the way that people just genuinely started caring for one another in ways that hadn't before. You start to learn you learn to appreciate your neighbors more than we ever had before. And your language, Counselor Boone, just drips with a Christian faith. I mean, I see that in the way you speak, in the way you present yourself, and I love that. As a believer myself, as a follower of Christ, I appreciate your stance, and I didn't really know that fully until Church in the Cul-de-Sac on Mantelwood Court during COVID-19. And I also learned that you're quite the singer.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far, but I have been singing since I was born. It just bubbles out of me. It's just an overflow of the joy that's inside of me, and it just has to come out, and that seems to be the way that it comes out. Everybody has a different gift, and that's the way that comes out, and I think it's just truly a reflection of what's inside is what you're getting when it bubbles out of me. So, yes, I think that I speak with salt, because if you've got to make the world thirsty for Christ, then your speech has to be flavored with that salt. And you can just throw it in there at Walmart, whether it's just have a blessed day. Mm-hmm. I hope God blesses you today. What could I pray for you about? I actually prayed with a cashier in Walmart about 3 weeks ago. She was just saying how badly she needed a raise. She's a single mom, has kids at home, has some issues. And she was saying so much, I'm believing for that raise, as she was kind of the comment she made. And I said, well, wait a minute. If you're a believer and you believe that God's the one who's going to give you the raise, and I'm a believer, and we're going to stop right here and we're just going to have a prayer meeting at the cash register. Well, you should have seen her. She was shocked. But when I reached out and put my hand on her arm and I started praying out loud at that cash register, man, do I have a friend at Walmart now. If you need anything, you just let me know. I can tell you where to get it. Wow. Because people are just waiting. They're thirsty, mm-hmm. and we've got the water. So we need to be giving it to them, a little bit of salt so they're thirsty, and then we need to not leave them there, but we need to give them the water. And so, yes, I since I was a small child, I've just always been bold about my faith, and I think that just comes from the Lord. And sometimes in school you face rejection over that. When I was Caleb's age, that was not a popular person to be. No. The Christian girl mm-hmm. in the 7th grade was not the popular person to be. But I've learned so much through that, and made so many friends that were lasting. And so, the Lord carries us through. It's not always a popular thing, even as an adult. Sometimes you're not the popular person, but what I'm doing is a lot more important than popularity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even in our disagreements with one another, you can still drip that salt. You can still show the love of Christ in disagreements. And I think we've gotten away from that too in society. Now, like if for whatever reason we're both pro-life people, we're all three pro-life at this table, I would assume, based on our conversations. But let's say if I was pro-choice and you're pro-life, in a typical conversation these days, we just couldn't have anything to do with each other. We couldn't speak because we don't agree. We don't believe the same. So therefore, we are enemies now. I'm old enough to remember when we could have disagreements and still be able to be friends at the end of it. I mean, this has all happened in the last just just 3 or 4 years, it seems like we've eroded to our society to a place where if I disagree with you and you disagree with me, then we have nothing to do with each other. And that's a horrible place to be.
It is. It's a detriment because it slows down communication on every level. It stops relationships and it stops our ability to minister if we have that affront. So I think the answer is either don't go there unless you're asked. I mean, don't provoke anyone because when you're provoking someone on something you know that they have a problem with, then you're just shutting down the communication. Now, if they ask, then we can speak in love and we can speak in a non-confrontational manner and not I, but just speaking truth. But you're right. There are so many relationships that have been ruined over a particular issue, even within the church, because of course people within the churches don't have the same level of agreement on not just pro-life, but so many other issues.
Absolutely. Now switching gears just a little bit here. You're an open book, and you don't pull any punches. What you see is what you get. But most people, I think a lot of people, would not know that there's something that you've done in your past that might surprise some people. And I think you know what I'm talking about.
I think I know where we're going.
Which many people will not know that you're a classic rock DJ.
That's right. Introduced to classic rock by some other kids in the class growing up in high school. And, I remember one day a guy took me to his house and he said, "You just got to listen to Stairway to Heaven." What? What's Stairway to Heaven? And so, 13 and a half minutes later,
right.
It's the song that we all know from this room that DJs put on when they need to go to the bathroom, right?
Exactly.
So I will put on Stairway or Freebird, and you've got a few minutes of a bathroom break.
That's right.
And if you hear them back to back, they're going to take a nap.
Yeah.
Right. So I got a little taste of classic rock in high school. And back then, 95.1 The Fox was the big rock station, the only place to listen to rock. It was before XM radio, before Sirius radio, before we had subscriptions and internet and all of these things. So in Prattville, you could listen to the radio stations which were offered. And at the time, 95.1 was the rock station. And so when I was a freshman in college, they were having this little special show that was called Hi Mom, I'm on the Fox. And it was a show where you sent in a list and the people who worked there picked out some winners, quote unquote, and they got to come in and be a guest DJ for an hour. And so the regular DJ would run the board and have some pre-ready little script, and you would kind of work back and forth, and they would allow you to back sell and front sell some songs and tell a few short stories and just have a little radio experience. So I sent in my, list of an hour's worth of songs, and someone picked me and called me to be on Hi Mom, I'm on the Fox. And I went in, and I've got to say it was one of the best nights of my life. It was truly, as an 18-year-old, how much more fun can you have than spinning some tunes that are your favorite and, giving shouts out and kind of making people feel like, man, she's on the radio. That's so cool. So I did that.
Cool.
And believe it or not, they liked me and they kept me around. So I learned to run the board, which was really a not sexy job at all. It's, it's pushing buttons and running some automated shows.
You're kidding me.
Really? Come on, Stacy. You got to want to love to do something else, right? So anyway, I did that for a while. I ran automated shows. And then my big break came on the night that Pink Floyd came to Birmingham or Atlanta. I can't even remember where. And everybody at the station wanted to go hear Pink Floyd. And they're like, well, what do we do with the radio station? If everybody's going, they're like, hey, Laura Lee can do it. And so sure enough, I was on 6 to midnight running some automated show that night. And they're like, would you be willing to stay until our overnight guy comes back from Pink Floyd? And I'm thinking, that's going to be a while. I know he's going to have a little extracurricular activity there. So
at a Pink Floyd concert?
By the time he makes it back, I'm going to have gotten to run some breaks and get a chance to do my thing. And so that was my little trial and error, and it went beautifully. I had such a great time. I don't think I ever went to bed that night because I stayed up all night so excited when I went home.
How cool.
And so after that, then I got my own show. So Saturday and Sunday nights, I was on for a couple of years there, spinning tunes and running breaks, and it was a lot of fun. So nowadays I love to do my radio voice just to kind of freak out the kids at school when I need to get their attention, or somebody who really doesn't believe it. That's always fun.
Can you give us like 10 seconds of your radio voice?
95.1 The Fox, Montgomery's only rock and roll station. We are rocking you through this 2 for Tuesday. It's 2 from Pink Floyd coming up. Hang on.
You've done that before a few times, I think. Very good.
Kids at school love that.
Oh, yes, of course. Now, most of these DJs have some kind of handle.
I used my regular name because I thought, why not? Everybody knows who I am. Use my name; it can't hurt me. And
well, and it was a literal Lora Lee. That's almost a DJ name in itself.
It flows. So
Millzer has a DJ name. It's just Millzer.
It's a grade school nickname that just never has gone away.
And that happens around here. I know a lot of those. So can't outgrow them when you stay in your hometown. You really can't outgrow them.
So now when you listen to radio, do you ever like hear the DJ and be like, I wouldn't have said that?
No, because now what happens is if you're on the radio, you don't want to listen to anybody. So I have an XM subscription, and if they speak at all, I hit the next button, next button.
But that's the unique thing about our radio station, and it's very rare now, is we still do a live morning drive time show with the G-Man. With the G-Man. That's just so rare. People don't realize all these shows that you listen to now,
they're automated.
Everything's automated and taped.
Right.
Because we had a guy, Don the Duke, his afternoon show. Everybody thought he was in Selma at the studio. I've gone by and picked up the show at his house when he didn't have internet connection. I mean, he's got a studio at his house. He does the show and then just emails it in. And
That's typical. And then it's safer, too, because you don't have any slip-ups. You don't have anything that you can't control that got out there. When I was coming along, I had to get my FCC license before I was allowed to be on air, so I had to apply for my FCC radio license. I still carry it in my wallet, just kind of, it's like a badge of honor, if you will.
Sure.
And people don't believe me, so I'm like, here's my FCC license to prove it. But there were 7 words that you didn't say on the radio, and there was a poster in our studio. You don't say that, and nowadays I hear them on TV at 6:00 at night, and I'm going, you couldn't even, you would have lost your license when I was in radio for saying something like that on the air.
There's a whole new set of words now you can't say.
Oh my!
That you could have said 20 years ago.
Yeah, you get canceled. That's a new way of getting thrown off.
Right? Exactly. Well, so. Switching back, putting on the city council hat again, what would you say has been your greatest moment as a city councilor so far?
Oh, wow, I'm speechless. I think becoming president was really like the most exciting thing. It was a fulfillment of a dream. Mm-hmm. And so, as many of you know, Jerry Starnes is going to be going over to the State House, and he was in that position, and I was the pro tem, which meant basically vice president in fancy language. So I was able to step up when he stepped down from that position. And so to be able to have the authority to delegate meetings and run meetings and just to get so much background information that's required in order to help move the council along, that was just probably a crowning moment for me, a time of real joy and reflection, and just kind of a peak moment that I really enjoyed. First night, you're a little trembly. What if something happens? What if I don't do this right? But it was still, it was probably the best night at council.
But I don't think anybody is more studied on the way council's supposed to proceed or on Robert's rules than you are. I remember when you first ran in 2012, and you were knocking on doors, and you knocked on our door. And I remember you saying, like, nobody is going to study the material. Nobody's going to know what's happening. Nobody's going to be more engaged than me. And I found that to be true over the last 10 years. You are so engaged and dialed into what's happening at a council meeting. You're not just getting minutes and reading them. You're digging in days of preparation, days of planning, and sometimes weeks and months. So I really appreciate the work you do. The time you put in. I know it's way more than what anybody, like you said before, way more than anybody else would think. And as such, you have a good feeling about the direction of this city. Like, we've seen where we've come from in the last 10 years. Where is Prattville headed in the next 10?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we're going to continue to grow in population. I think that we are going to have to really watch our school system and our education, and we're going to have to, as a city, come together and decide that is something we value, and we're going to have to value it monetarily. We're going to have to value it with hours. We're going to have to value it with possibly some really hard decisions. I don't know which those will be, but I think that if we want our economy to grow, and if we want businesses to decide that Prattville is the place they want to be, we have to show them how much we value the next generation, how much we value their family. We have to do the same thing with our Parks and Rec department. We have to make this a place where you can play and work. So we don't want people leaving every time they get a moment off. We want to provide things. So I see us growing in those areas. I see us having to take some big steps towards infrastructure to just keep things ready and moving ahead for that. So I do think that if we're not willing to do that in the next 10 years, Prattville will turn and go the other way, and some counties around us will outshine us if they decide they are willing to do that. Because there are choices when businesses are making choices, when people are making choices about where to put their children in school, those sorts of things. So I see that that's where Prattville needs to go, and if the people will get behind it, and there may be some sacrifices, there may be some personal sacrifices involved for people, it's definitely going to take some money to get our school systems, our infrastructure, and our play places ready to go.
You mentioned school systems, and it's always been a touchy subject. The school systems around here, right? We've had several guests on here in the past 2 months that have talked about how we got to bring up the school systems, and we actually have a chance in November to as a central and a Pratt school district to show that we do monetize, that we do value our schools with our property tax dollars. But there's a whole other element to that goes beyond that. And some people cry for we got to have a city school system, and some people cry for we got to have a hybrid city county school system. And there's people that think we can make the county school systems work the way they are by just investing properly. I mean, what's your take on that?
It's a really hard call because people are so emotional about that every which way, especially because our teachers here in Autauga County are our people. They are ladies and men who grew up here and decided to stay here to teach when there are offers from school systems around here where they can pay you a lot more or they can give you a lot more. I've seen the same thing with our first responders. We have other areas nearby where they can commute and be a first responder, and they can get so much more. So I don't think that a city school system is the way to go because I love our county, and I believe that in some ways Prattville has to sacrifice being the big brother because we are the city in Autauga County. Now, Autauga County does have to remember that they are part of Prattville too. It's a two-way street, but in some ways we do have to carry a little bit of water. And I realize that I'm elected by the people of the city of Prattville, and I take that very, very seriously when we take our money in Prattville City and decide where to put it. But at the same time, we see a big picture working with the council. We see so much more, and we see how much we can do together as a county. And so I do think that we have to keep that in balance and remember that our county schools are important and they each have a personality of their own, and that a city school is not necessarily the best thing for everybody. So I do think that there is a mix here of what we do and what we have to look at, and I don't think that just separating solves any problem.
No, I think you're exactly right. The partnerships is what makes it great. If we can get the partnerships right, then all this can work together, and we can have a school system that is reflective of a city and a county that wants to grow, that wants to be progressive, that wants to be here as a place that the next generation wants to come back to because there is work, there is good paying work here. And so I couldn't agree with you more. Well, we've been rolling for about an hour now. So I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you coming on. I think the work you're doing on the council and in the community at large is one of the things that makes us great as a city, as a community, as a county even. And so just thank you for the work you do. And Millzer, anything you want to add?
Well, I want to add that we are now just one counselor away from having a quorum on the preferred experience.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
We're slowly working our way through the city council here, and I think when me and you started this, that was part of. I mean, all kidding aside, we wanted to give an opportunity for our city officials to have a voice, and to be able to learn more about you outside of behind the desk with the gavel, and I think that's something that's important, that the people know that you are people too, that you're just not a voice with a gavel and just telling everybody we need order. So,
right. Each of us has a story.
Yeah,
and
that's what we want to do, and so far, like I said, we've almost halfway through the city council, and we're looking forward to hearing the rest of the city councilors and their stories. And they're invited to come on anytime and just tell us about yourself. We don't have to talk about politics. I mean, we spent maybe out of the hour, 5 minutes talking politics here. So it's a good thing where the citizens of the city and people around can hear how these people are just people like anybody else.
Right. Well, I appreciate y'all having me on and the wonderful opportunity to be here and to speak to the people of the region. And just, like you said, let them know that there's a lot more to us than just sitting behind the desk. And we're very approachable. I mean, I know our phone numbers are out there, but we truly are approachable, and we're willing to meet with and spend time with the citizens and find out what their stories are and why they have passion for whatever their issues are.
And just to add to that, how much could be avoided? How much of conflict and could be avoided if people would just do what you just said?
It would be very, very helpful if they would see something that they have a question about and give the individual who is on the agenda sponsoring that a call and just say, hey, could you explain this to me? I'm concerned about such and such. And because we have to do that too, we have to talk to department heads and find out, why is it this way? How come we can't do it that way? And you will find out so much more instead of just flailing and coming down angry at the meeting. There's a time for that. There is. There's a time for justice and for anger. But in general, so much of it can really just be explained over a simple phone call.
Yeah, absolutely. And Prattville.com, click on the city council, and that's what phone numbers are listed.
Absolutely.
Phone numbers are listed. These people are available and ready to talk to you if you will just call. But you don't know there's a problem unless somebody talks to you.
Right.
So again, selfishly, I hope you're part of this council for the next 30 years, but the day you're ready to run for governor, let me know. I would love to help.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you for the vote of confidence.
All right, Millzer, are we ready to kick it to poetic justice?
Yeah, there's been nasty rumors going around that Chip Powell has been suspended from his duties as for doing poetic justice. He had a little controversial one.
Sexist comments made in his last poetic justice.
I was trying to be diplomatic.
You can say it. It was awfully sexist.
Not Chip Powell. He would never do anything like that.
He was misunderstood, is what it was.
But there's no truth to the rumor that he's been suspended from poetic justice. In fact, we've got him in studio today. Well, I guess a long lost twin brother of his is that people didn't even know existed. Skip Powell.
Hello, son. Skip Powell here, and I just want you to know that I think people got the wrong impression about Chip. He's a good man, but his poetic nature comes from me, and I gave it to him in 1986 when Coach Dye told him to take up English Lit, and I was like, no, son, just read this book of poetry that I wrote myself. And it spurned him along the way into great things. But today's poem, it comes from a children's poet laureate named Ken Nesbitt called I Saw a Sloth Play Soccer. And it goes like this. I saw a sloth play soccer with a tortoise and a snail. They were all enthusiastic and determined to prevail. They were positively passionate and truly in the groove, and by watching very closely, I could almost see them move. Now that's deep, son. That's some deep stuff. And, Ken Nesbitt, of course you know this, I don't have to tell you, Millzer, he's an American children's poet, named the Children's Poet Laureate by the Poetry Foundation back in 2013. So, beautiful stuff. He's one of the last one to receive this title before the Poetry Foundation changed its name to the Young People's Poet Laureate. And, of course, everyone knows about his short films that he's made famous, Wayne the Stegosaurus. So, check it out. That's it. Poetic Justice with Skip Powell. I'm out. Wow.
That was deep.
I was glad to have him here today because without him, Chip on his birthday trip to Austin, we wouldn't have had a poetic justice moment today.
Well, I just have to jump in here real quickly because, I mean, we've got more canceled language here. They no longer have a children's poet laureate. He has to be the young people. Being a child. Since when did being a child become pejorative? When is it so negative? I mean, come on, we're canceling the word children in the United States now.
Everything's pejorative now. Everything, all the way down to what women's is now pejorative. It has to be. What's the term now? Those who may be able to give birth. That something like that. Something like that. You cannot say women. You can't say men. It's all obligatory. It's all pejorative and it's so annoying at the same time. One of these days we're going to look back at this and go, what did we do? One of these days society's going to wake up and go, how stupid were we? It has to end at some point. But anyway, well, Counselor, we always wrap up this show with a motivational minute by Prattville Junior High School Athletic Director Donny Burnett, who is the master of motivation. He gets us fired up for the week. He ends this podcast, and people can hear this and be charged up and ready for the next 7 days before the next Preferred Experience podcast comes at them. So, Millzer, why don't you go ahead and send us into the motivational minute?
This is Coach Donny Burnett, and here's today's motivational minute. It comes from probably the greatest basketball coach that ever laced up a pair of Converse, Coach John Wooden. Hold yourself to a higher standard than anyone expects of you. This is Coach Donny Burnett, and that's today's motivational minute.
There's another one of our people that makes the school systems great is Coach Donny Burnett.
Oh, and I love his lunchtime pictures. Do y'all get his lunchtime pictures?
I do. It makes me hungry.
Oh, I know. Prattville Junior High cafeteria. Nothing like it.
Nothing like it. And it's been nothing like this episode. I think this has been a really great one. And we're going to go ahead and wrap it up right there. So, Counselor Boone, thank you very much. We have really enjoyed our time together. And now it's time to bid a fond farewell. So, for Counselor Lora Lee Boone, City Council President Lora Lee Boone, and the Millzer, I'm Will Barrett, as always, saying good night, God bless, and go Lions.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. Man, Will, love you coming in, pinch hitting, and dude, you hit a grand slam tonight.
Well, expect nothing less from me, Daryl. I'm the best.